Right? Now we have a teacher named Mr. Wiedemann. He's a Year 6 teacher, very funny teacher, uses comedy as a tool to make it more engaging and entertaining classroom. He's a math teacher and the kids love his class, right? We know this. Now 2 weeks ago he's got a new student, Sama. She's from Iran. The principal is very enthusiastic about making sure that she fits in and feels that she belongs in the classroom. Yeah. So we're very happy. She also is very enthusiastic about maths, which is fantastic. However, during one particular maths class, Mr. Wiedemann puts on the board a very complex math equation, not expecting anyone to really be able to nail it in one go, so to teach to that equation. However, Sama, being a very gifted math student, gets it in one. Fantastic. Now he wants to acknowledge her success. That's the idea behind this comment. However, he does so in a joking manner, saying he did not know that girls could be this clever when it comes to solving complex maths problems. Okay, let's have a look at the issue here.
So, one of the key issues in this particular topic is the use of humour in the classroom. Now, Mr. Wenderman is known for being a very funny teacher, a bit of a comedian, and as a result the students love him. Now, the literature on humour in the classroom is actually, it's a little bit so-so. In some cases, it can be very inclusive, it can build a great classroom feel, turn it into a very friendly, inclusive environment. On the other hand, if the bond between the teacher and the students is less strong, it will actually have the counter effect and cause more disruptions and distractions. So it really depends on the relationship that the teacher shares with the students. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, does humour in the classroom actually fit within the standards? ATSL Standard 3.5 says that teachers need to communicate effectively in the classroom. They need to communicate in a manner that supports engagement, participation, and supports their students. So in this case, is his attempt at humour doing those things? Arguably not. It's not supporting Sama. He's trying to reward her participation, but in a backhanded manner that may very well backfire. And he probably is not promoting engagement particularly. Also, ATSL Standard 5.2 requires teachers to give effective feedback in the classroom. In this case, he's giving feedback, but despite his attempts to give positive reinforcement, it's not actually being delivered effectively because he has made a joke that will potentially alienate a good part of his audience. The Victorian Teachers Code of Conduct 1.1.f says that teachers need to communicate fairly and well with students. Fair is the key point here. A comment that says he has never known girls to be so good at maths is very much not fair. It's biased against a significant point of his classroom, which is setting up a clear gender bias that is a very serious issue in the classroom.
Exactly, Asher. And to expand upon that, I do not think that Mr. Wenderman is adhering to Principle 3.1 from Principles of Learning and Teaching, Principle 1.2 and 1.4 from the Victorian Teaching Professional Code of Conduct. These principles mean that a teacher must be able to use effective strategies that are in the interest of all students. He must be able to create an environment that promotes mutual respect and engage in model using impartial language that is not discriminatory or gender biased, as well as ensuring that he enhances the self-worth of all his students. So I would say that Mr. Wenderman would be considered a role model for his students within his classroom. However, by engaging in his quite discriminatory and sexist comment, he is not undertaking his professional duty, nor is he adhering to those principles that I just mentioned. So, first of all, he's not maintaining a socially inclusive environment within his classroom, nor is he modelling respectful behaviour or interactions towards Sama and possibly other females in his classroom. Even though his comment, the intention behind his comment was to acknowledge her achievements. As a result of this quite discriminatory comment, Sama could infer that her teacher is not giving her respect, and like you said, Asher, not creating a good relationship between a student and a teacher.
No.
She could also be feeling that her achievement to solve complex mathematical problems is odd because she is a female, or not a likely achievement for herself. This can cause confusion for Sama. It can also cause her humiliation or embarrassment. This is because she thought she did something great by solving a complex problem. However, it was not expected of her, and so she's just confused as to why her teacher is interacting with her in that way. This could have an adverse effect on her self-worth, and of course this is something that Mr. Wonderman should be enhancing. Furthermore, I do not think that he is adhering to the Principle 4.1 of AITSL Professional Standards for Teaching, and that he should support his students' participation. He did not support Sama's achievement with a positive non-discriminatory remark, and an implication of this is that Sama may not feel confident enough to participate in future mathematical activities. This could be detrimental to her learning at school, especially in mathematics, a subject she is good at and enjoys participating in, and yet there could be wider implications such as her withdrawing from improving her learning in mathematics.
Excellent. I want to look at very specifically one particular point from the principles, which is 1.1 of the APST, which is support student participation. I want to look at the class dynamic and how it changes after you've made a comment such as this. Now the comment is specifically, jokingly says, very important word, jokingly, says, I did not think girls could be this good at solving complex maths problems, right? It is extremely gender biased and sexist. What it tells the boys of that classroom is that girls are not as good at maths as they are. It also tells the girls, maybe there isn't that much point in trying to be the best you can be in a maths class, right? So now we have two big problems. Number one, we have someone in the classroom, the teacher, who people will look to for the answers on how we treat each other, as well as how we run a classroom, how we act in the classroom, and they will see someone saying that you can say this sort of comment to a girl. Right? So now the boys in this classroom, we have an immediate split. The boys in this classroom are going to think, well, if we're doing a group assignment, I don't want a girl in my classroom, or in my group, because she won't be as good as the boys. I want only boys who get the highest mark. For the girls, they can say to themselves, I don't want to be in any group assignment, I don't want to do anything, because what's the point? I'm seen as someone who's almost this lower class citizen in this classroom when it comes to maths ability. Right? We also have a look at the interpretation of their own results. Let's look at, say, if they do well on a test or if they're going to do well in reports. Most girls can't enjoy a very good mark because it's supposed to be a surprise. And any boy who does worse than a girl will be extra saddened by that because they should have done better, in theory, based on the comment, which sets a new sort of gender rule within the classroom. Now, is all this stuff being said out loud and put into the teacher? No, it's being thought of by the students, okay? We also have a look at the idea that there's just no motivation in class for the girls, especially for summer. What was meant to be an excellent or great opportunity to give some positive feedback and acknowledge how great she was in that moment has completely ruined any chance of her doing well at maths again. Well, there's a possibility of that, which is a terrible thing for the classroom. Now, it also creates that divide outside of this classroom. We have these kids approaching other subjects that are very maths focused, like science, chemistry, physics, and saying to themselves, are the girls as good at these as well? And what if they've got other maths teachers who are female? Are they as good as Mr. Wiedemann?
Yeah, and I want to expand on that point by saying, that does expand much further than that. It's not just two teachers and students, it's also the wider community where this image can be portrayed. And, it stems off the Principle 3.2 from the AITSL saying that, teachers need to be aware of these legal obligations and especially with regard to discrimination and harassment. And I'm sure that they have school policies in mind with this. So that is to keep in check the behaviour of teachers and ensure that this image or this alteration of the perception of what a teacher is supposed to be doesn't occur. And it comes back to what Amy was saying about being a positive role model within the classroom. It also stems externally. So with regards to the APST 7.1, it states that teachers have to sort of move towards this idea of being an ethical person who makes decisions with a just mind, both inside the classroom, to other teachers and to the wider community. In this case or this circumstance, this might lead to something which happens, say, at Xavier College, where a student presented an idea of them being above everyone else and everyone in the wider community reflecting on this and saying, do I want to send my teacher, my student to this school? So for example, with summer, parents might be asking, do I want to send my son or daughter to a school where they will instantly be judged based on their gender, which is an unfair assessment. And this also comes down to Principle 2.1 of the Victorian Professional Code of Conduct, saying that they need to be aware of how their behaviour impacts the profession as a whole. How are teachers perceived? Are they seen as facilitators of education or seen as people who pass judgment on their students? That being said, I think that it's also an opportunity for something positive to come out. So he has made a mistake, and there is this perception that teachers never do make errors, where this could be turned around and show that people do in fact make errors, and can approach these circumstances in an appropriate manner. And in that way, I think an appropriate response could be generated.
Which is an excellent way to model resilient change in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Alright, so let's pretend that we are colleagues of Mr. Wiedemann, we work at the same school. How do we go about resolving this issue now that it's come to light? What do you think we should do?
Well, I think that there should be a private meeting between a teacher and Mr. Wenderman. I think that another teacher, such as one in the senior role, could inform Mr. Wenderman in this private meeting that they are aware of the comment that was said to Sama in the classroom, and that this teacher could allow for Mr. Wenderman to have the opportunity to reflect upon why his comment was discriminatory, why it was unethical, and why it may have breached some of the principles in the professional frameworks that outline quality and ethical teaching.
So what you're saying is that with that meeting, it's important to look at not only that it is wrong, but we want him to understand why it is wrong.
Yes.
That's the more important part.
Yep.
I think that it's important that he takes away the message that it's not his humour that's the problem, but it's the way that he made that joke in a discriminatory and biased manner. And you could give him options. I mean, he could have made a joke along the lines of, "Wow, Sama, that's so good. At this rate, you'll be taking my job." And that way he's still giving her encouragement, positive reinforcement, good feedback, but in a non-discriminatory manner.
So the meeting works as a bit of training to look at how you can resolve the situation in the future with a bunch of alternatives they can brainstorm together.
Good. I also think that meeting would highlight whether there is actually a further issue as well, whether or not it was just a direct comment or potentially an underlying bias of Mr. Wenderman, and whether he does in fact have an underlying gender bias which he's presenting without even realising it.
Yeah, so it actually tackles both hypotheticals, that this could be a person with a one-off mistake or someone who actually has a deeper bias within them. It would reveal that as well, so that's really good.
Absolutely.
Well, now we had a private meeting with Mr. Wiedemann, I think it would also be a good idea to step up to a general meeting. We're not going to single him out and make him into a bit of a head on a pike, but rather we can show that now this has come to light. It could be happening in other classrooms, other teachers that we're not aware of. So having a general meeting to explain to people how these sorts of comments are wrong, how it affects the class and wider implications, I think would be a very effective way to look at nearing this problem early before it becomes out of hand with our teachers.
Absolutely.
What do you guys think of this panel discussion here as a sort of way of resolving issues like this? Do you think it sort of worked out quite well as a way to discuss and deal with these sorts of problems?
I think it's an excellent representation of what teachers would actually do in this circumstance. They'd come together, they'd discuss the school policies, the codes of conduct, and then using those sort of make an implied decision towards the issue.
Realistically, if this kind of issue came up, a panel of principals, team leaders would be the ones who discuss this in a format very similar to this.
It would also be very good considering that the principals don't actually have serious guidelines on how to do this sort of disciplinary action. So even though we know the principles and how they affect our classroom technique and professionalism, they aren't exactly there to teach us how to go about every single situation we run into.
It comes down to individual school policy.
Excellent. Cool.
Excellent.
Great. Teaching!